Hey, everybody, that took a little bit. Sorry about that. Challenge tonight. And my network connection is a little low, so we'll see how this will turn out. Tonight, I have my friend Patty Mason on, and she's a CBD oil expert. Challenges that I dealt with a lot of challenges that were unnecessary because I thought that when people treated me badly, when they would have temper tantrums, even if they wouldn't say anything, that energy would still be there and it would affect me. It was a strong form of emotional abuse and energetic abuse, even if there was no physicality involved, because a lot of us are empaths. And because we're empaths, it means that we feel things more than other people do. Hey, Jane, nice to see you. I'm just waiting on Patty, so she should be here any minute, I would hope. Hey, Lisa and Michelle's here too. Awesome, very cool. So I was just talking about how, narcissism and having narcissists in my life became a way of life. It became just the way things were done because I didn't know any better. I didn't realize that there were other options, that you could set boundaries, that you could stand up for yourself. And also remember, a lot of the tools that we have now really weren't around over the last few decades. And one of them being hemp oil and CBD oil. Now, even just in the last few years, it's become a really big deal. And in reintegrating it back into people's lives. I mean, I've got my own story around it. And my story around CBD oil was I had a brother. And my brother lived to be, I believe, about 14. But the challenge is a year after he was born, he started to develop these big epileptic seizures, infantile seizures. And they couldn't figure out what was causing them, and they didn't know what to do. And so he'd keep having these seizures until there was so much damage. By the time they figured out what was going on, there was so much damage that he really was severely, severely disabled. And so my parents had to make the choice, and they put him in a nursing home. And in the nursing home for those next, 13 years, they kept him heavily medicated to keep the seizures down. Now, if you followed anything over the last bunch of years, you've started to understand that they have had wonderful success with childhood epilepsy and childhood seizures and using CBD oil. It's been a really big deal. And so it got me thinking, and it really touched my life, this whole CBD, hemp, medical marijuana discussion, because I have a strong feeling that had my brother, if this had been a normal way to medicate, a normal way to help people heal, if it had still been a part of everybody's everyday medicine cabinet, my brother probably wouldn't have ended up in the challenges that he did. He wouldn't have had to live in a nursing home. I probably could have had a pretty normal brother. And since it was just my sister and I, and my brother in a nursing home who I didn't know very well at all, who couldn't walk or talk or see or hear. This really touches me to think about how powerful hemp and CBD really is, and how we don't even know everything about how it works. I mean, because they're finding that there's all these different strains, and in the different strains, there's different terpenes. The same sort of things when they talk about spices, where what gives the spices the different flavors and the different smells and different tastes are these terpenes. And the terpenes are found in all sorts of great medical marijuana. And I'm not sure if it's found in the hemp plant or not. We'll have to ask Patty when she comes on. But it's really, the healing properties of this are off the charts. Nobody knows how far it could go. But I do work with so many patients, and so I work with so many people who are patients of medical marijuana or have family members who are. And they honestly, deeply believe that the CBD and the THC and the terpenes are healing them. They're healing their digestive system, where there are all of these CBD receptors. It's healing their brain, where there's a ton of CBD receptors. It's healing every single part of them. And it's exciting. I mean, even one woman that I work with, her daughter was born with an exposed brainstem and has had, dozens of brain surgeries and has struggled with this. And the CBD and THC, and it's healing that part of her. She's becoming more functional. And I know from my own experience, when I've added this into my life, I've become more functional. It's been really, really great. And so over even the last couple years, it's become a really big topic for me, because I've discovered, you would think, since it was in the same family, in the same thing going on, that I might have a sensitivity too, because they believed that, the problem with my brother was possibly genetic, which means that it could be passed down. And so this sensitivity to the environment, this, electrical system that can short out, these brain waves that can have a problem, this could have been passed, to my sister and I. And so you wonder, what's been missing in all of our, in all of our diets, or in all of our supplements, or in all of that? What's been missing? And the very cool thing is what's been coming out about endocannabinoids. Hey, Tara, nice to see you. I'm waiting on Patty. But if Patty doesn't show up soon, Tara, do you want to come back on? I thank you. I love this top. So if you want to come, I'll give her like 10, 15 minutes. And if Patty doesn't come on, just let me know and we'll hop you on and have a great live stream if you're free, only if you're available, on protecting yourself from narcissists. That would be so much fun. So, okay, so I'm talking about CBD oil. And one of the things that I believe strongly about, okay, no problem, Tara. One of the things I feel really strongly about is that we have to work on our physical self if we want to feel more balanced. There's been all this research coming out lately about gut inflammation causing brain inflammation, and brain inflammation then causing mood disorders and emotion disorders, which partially of what, is causing some narcissists to behave like narcissists, to come out of the woodwork and to come up out of the dredges of humanity. It's very possible that these imbalances and these mental and emotional disorders, because our gut's all messed up, because we're not coming back into balance, is coming from an inflamed brain. And if all of us are struggling with this from our diet, from our environment, from, electrical magnetic waves, if all of us are dealing with this, we've got this low level of inflammation too, and it makes us moodier, and it makes us less tolerant. So one of the most wonderful tools I found really has been getting into CBD and getting into these terpenes, because what happens is, let's say 20 minutes after I do a dose of CBD, my whole body calms down, everything levels out, and I become less reactive. And now suddenly somebody who's behaving in a narcissistic way, who's, selfish and self-absorbed, and I'm triggering and I'm walking on eggshells and I'm wondering what the problem is, suddenly stuff like that doesn't bother me anymore. That's the very cool thing about CBD. And so it's become one of the ways that I protect myself from people who are behaving badly, people who are behaving in a very toxic way. It's one of the ways that I do it. because it balances me out, it makes me feel calmer, and now I've got something that can get in between the narcissist and me. It's a very, very cool thing. You know, a few years ago, when I really wanted to work on this piece, and I wanted to become less emotionally sensitive, and I wanted my nervous system to become less sensitive, I went to a functional medicine doctor. And one of the gold nuggets he gave me was a neurotransmitter called GABA, G-A-B-A. And he says to me, he says, well, this is how it works. Hey, Kim, he said, this is how it works. It kind of wraps you. It makes you feel like you're wrapped in bubble wrap. And I said, really? That's very, very cool. And so at the time, I started to take GABA, and it did exactly that thing. It helped wrap me in bubble wrap so stuff wasn't as, I wasn't as sensitive. So I've always gone the physical route of how do I become less sensitive? How do I feel more grounded? What do I need to do so that when someone behaves badly, I don't get triggered. I don't go into my fight or flight. Instead, I'm able to set those boundaries and stand up for myself. So really working on the things like using GABA, like keeping up on my vitamin D so that I have good, I have good vibes, like making sure that I'm hydrated and staying on top of that. And like the CBD, which is the newest thing in my arsenal, in my little tool bag that keeps me in that really graceful, grounded place. When I work on the physical, that's what makes the biggest difference for me. And that's the best way that I protect myself, especially from narcissists in my life, especially from that really selfish behavior, is because I can't always control them, and I definitely can't do anything when I'm being triggered. When I'm being triggered, I have no choices except to react and protect myself. Fight, flight, freeze, or faint. It's one of those. Hey, Christy, nice to see you. We're just waiting for Patty to come on. I'm not quite sure where she is. Sometimes things get in the way, and so I'm focusing right now on the way that I have really protected myself from narcissists. So I'm glad you're here, and we're hanging out for Patty. So I always went the really physical route, the route of what can I do, what can I take control of, what empowers me. Because when I try to control a narcissist, when I try to stop them from doing something, especially coming out of my place of being, fight or flight, then it all goes downhill fast. Everything gets, sort of self-destructs and gets destroyed because I'm not able to be the light. There was this great philosopher that I love. Her name was Eva Perakis. She was from the 1950s. And one of the things that Eva would say in her writings was the person who is more spiritually evolved is the one who is responsible for kind of guiding the direction that the relationship goes in. So any relationship, whether it's with your boss, whether it's with your coworker, with your spouse, if you've done more of this work, then you end up being, not because you have to be, not because, well, fine, I have to do one more thing. Isn't this terrible? That's not what we're talking about. But when we honor and recognize the wisdom and the experience that we have, that maybe we've gone through a lot of hard times, maybe we've been through many difficult situations, when we honor that and own it and recognize that that we have that wisdom, it's like we step into a new place. And we recognize that if we care about somebody, or if we're stuck working with them or being with them, not by something that's our choice, it's for our own sanity, for our own well-being and balance. It's our responsibility to ourselves to be the one that takes the lead in the relationship. Because if we let the dysfunctional, crazy, narcissistic, out of control person call the shots, then it's going to be a train wreck, and it's going to be so much more dramatic than you ever want it to be. But because you've done your work, because you've self-reflected and looked into these things, you step into that place, and you step into that place of taking the spiritual lead in any relationship that you have that needs a little bit of boost. It's not an ego thing. A lot of people can get trapped in the spiritual ego. in the I'm better than everybody else around me. I'm above all of this. I am a spiritual being having a human experience, or vice versa, whatever it is. We tend to see ourselves as spiritually arrogant because and that's where we try to lead. We try to lead by judgment, or we try to lead by pointing out other people's flaws, or we try to lead by rarely by example, but we definitely lead by telling everybody else what they should be doing, right? That can be a real spiritual arrogance. And so that's not what I'm talking about. What I'm talking about is owning your light, owning what you know, owning the work that you did. Hey, Tara, nice to see you. Again, owning what you've learned in your life, and really being the light that shines the way for all of your relationships. So do you want to hop on, Tara, for a little while until you get a call? I'd love to hear, and if you get a work call, jump off. It's no problem, but it'll be fun to have you on for a little bit. So I'm going to have Tara come join me. Oh, Tara, it looks like you'll have to ask to be on, and then that'll be cool. Yeah. So Tara, add you to the mix. So when we come from a really great space, when we come from a grounded place, that is, let's see, yeah. When we come from, my video froze. It'll come back on in a second. When we come from a really grounded place, we are able to defend ourselves. We're able to stand up for ourselves. We're able to make choices and do things which are in our best interests. We're no longer trapped in that reactionary, in that victim-victimizer sort of cycle, because we're no longer being hijacked by how we feel. We're no longer allowing our brain inflammation to determine whether we speak up for ourselves. We're not allowing our issues. Hey, Chanel and Susan, nice to see you. We're not allowing our issues. We're not allowing that emotional hijacking, our anger or our fear or our anxiety. We're not allowing that anymore then to call the shots. And that's the very cool thing. Hey, Paula. So when you feel super balanced, when you make sure that you take care of feeling as good as you can. Let's see. So when you do the physical things, like doing CBD oil, like making sure you have enough hydration. Oh, I feel my echo again. You don't happen to have headphones, Tara, do you?
Oh, let me get them.
Awesome.
Keep talking. Just ignore me.
Okay. So when I do physical things that keep me in a really great self-care place, when I stay on top of these things and I don't fall off the wagon, and I stay on top of the water and on top of the CBD and on top of the sleep, there's like this magical thing that happens. And what happens is suddenly I am not overwhelmed by my own feelings. Suddenly, someone who's threatening, and having their own emotional meltdown and wanting to take it out on me, suddenly those people don't frighten me. So there's like this there's like this sweet spot of where you can stand up for yourself, and when we kind of fall off the wagon. You can go too far one direction where you're overwhelmed, and you can go too far the other direction where you're too okay. You want to find the sweet spot in there, the physical spot where you're like, this isn't okay, but I'm okay enough to stand up for myself. I'm okay enough to not be overwhelmed by emotion, so I can stand up and say, no, this isn't the way that I want to live my life. So do you have any opinions on that, Tara?
Yeah, it's it reminds me of this morning. I wrote a post that we are the only problems in our lives, and we are the only solutions. You know, we are the ones really that make the problems in the mountains. So that we make the problems because we identify that it is a problem. So I think that's the first thing is, yeah, identifying it is a problem. And then once we identify it, we go, okay, I can be my own solution in the way that I respond to it. And
Right.
when I mean, you notice when, if you have clients or people in your loved ones in your life and they're saying, oh, I can't do something because of them. And then I play devil's advocate and I go, hang on, you're
Right.
limiting yourself because of your response.
Yeah.
So
Yes. And that's exactly it. When we blame other people, when we start giving our power to other people, the power to control how we feel, the
yeah,
power to control whether we are happy or not, when we give that to somebody else by blaming them and saying it's their fault, we are screwed.
yeah, we
Because
are.
then we've now, every time we blame somebody, we have just given them the power and in their mind the right to treat us whatever way they want to, because we are not willing to we 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 are not uh okay, I lost my train of thought.
No, yeah, no, I'll jump in then. Yeah, because like that's the thing is that it's actually interesting because I'm reading a book at the moment called
Yeah.
Down the Rabbit Hole with it's the story of a former Playboy bunny. And she talks about Hugh Hefner.
Really?
Yeah, it's really interesting. I've nearly read the whole
I
thing
just
in
got
2 days. Yeah, I know. It's like, it's a random book. But I thought, oh, it would be interesting. And, you know, I've actually learned so much from it about
that.
Hugh Hefner was a narcissist and like a controlling
Oh,
narcissist. It was
wow.
not
Yeah.
all roses. It was awful for her in the Playboy Mansion. And really, one of the things he
Oh,
did was
wow.
like belittle her self-esteem. And that's what narcissists do.
Hmm.
And if you give a narcissist power, they'll happily take it and go,
Oh,
great,
they're gonna take
awesome,
it and run, and they'll
yes,
feel
yeah,
better about it. And
yep,
so don't we give them our power by saying it's your fault that I'm feeling this way, which
yeah,
amazes me
yeah,
because you have to wonder. I mean, why does a narcissist feel insecure? Because they're always giving their power away to other people about how they feel. They're never really
yeah,
taking control of how they feel and doing something about it. I have a good friend who they made a shift in their mind, and they used to be someone who was always blaming everybody, but then they got
mm,
tired of feeling anxious and feeling angry,
yeah,
and they got tired of that, and they're like, the only person who can control how I feel is me. And if I'm
yeah,
constantly blaming other people and giving them the right and the
mm,
permission to 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 make me feel whatever way they want to make me feel, of course I'm going to be insecure because I'm
yeah,
constantly being victimized by everybody,
yeah,
because I'm I'm I'm
yeah,
letting them,
yeah,
I'm acknowledging that they have that power over me. What a helpless, horrible, insecure, awful,
yeah.
anxious, anxiety producing place to be.
Yeah,
Okay, I'm done.
that's so true, Rita. And if we don't, yeah, and oh, that's all right. We're so used to like chatting now. We just know when to finish each other's sentences. Yeah, no, like that's the thing is that like, and in the in the case of the Playboy mansion, um, that's what she said. She said she was basically going along with who Hugh Hefner wanted her to be, and he had. Fun fact, he had 7 girlfriends in that mansion. Like, ew, right? But
Right?
and
Right?
yeah, so gross, it's so gross. But all of them became clones of one another because they felt that they
Oh,
had to be. Yeah, they had to be, like getting plastic surgery, getting the boob job, the nose job, or even like dressing a certain way. And they had to
oh.
follow this and conform because if they didn't, they would be kicked out of the
Hmm.
mansion. And it really,
Right.
that is so true of what happens with the relationships in real life is that if we feel it, well, if we give them the power, then they
Yes.
dictate the terms on which we either feature in their life or not. And that's what's
Right.
the really sad part about when women get in relationships where they feel they feel, that's the key word, that they have to change.
Yes. They
And look,
feel.
that's what we risk. We risk rejection when we're choosing authenticity. But isn't it a greater risk if we don't? Like, what are we giving
Yes.
up? What are we sacrificing? We're sacrificing
Yes.
ourselves. And that's the thing.
Right. And if somebody doesn't want that authenticity from us,
Yeah.
do we really want them in our world? But here's the problem,
Hell
right?
no.
A lot of narcissists have this intensity, and there's a part of them that also
Yeah.
has this desire to please, desire
Oh
to make
yeah.
other people happy. And so it's there's this magnetic uh,
Mm.
there's this magnetic draw that we have to people who can be more narcissistic because they've got this intensity. And as an empath,
Yeah.
when you can feel that intensity, it's very, you feel, you end up feeling a little more alive, you know? And so there's this draw, and you can be like, well, I shouldn't have a narcissist in my life, but there's the times when they're good are really, really good. you
Yeah.
know I just don't
Yeah.
know if I want to deal with the times that are bad. And so people follow how they feel, and that's part of what
Yes.
gets them stuck, is because they're following the good feelings and trying to hold on to that,
Yeah.
um, trying to keep getting it to come back. And that's part of how the narcissist gets a hold of them, is
Well,
because
because yeah, exactly, exactly.
mhm,
Well, because a
they hold
narcissist
out that
has it.
carrot.
Yeah. Yep, exactly. They hold out the carrot, and that's their drawing card. So they can become very, very good at, like, knowing. It's that whole thing of when a narcissist loves you, you feel like you're the greatest person in the world, and you feel like this amazing
Mhm.
love that's shining down on you. But when the narcissist pulls it away, you know about it
Mhm.
because you just feel
Right.
completely shut out. So it can be intense roller coaster ride to go on
Right.
with a
Right.
narcissist. You know.
Right. And when for me, I was raised with a certain level of adrenaline when I was a kid. And because of that, when
Mm.
I got older, I'm like drawn to things which boost that adrenaline. I'm drawn to the things that make me um, feel alive. And
Mm.
so that drama, we can be very attached to it. And
Yeah.
so one of the ways to protect ourselves from people who are narcissistic is to work on our own addiction to that drama,
Yeah.
our own addiction to that intensity, and feeling like we can only feel alive in this situation. When I started to realize I could feel alive and excited about life and over the top happy in other situations, in other ways, that's a real game changer, because
Mm.
now you aren't trying to satisfy this need from this person. You're getting your needs met, and now you're able to say, you know what, I'm not so dependent upon you. That's that codependency, when
Yeah.
only one person is able to fulfill some sort of feeling for us, and we don't
Yeah.
know where to get that feeling taken care of anyplace else. And so when I work on the things that make me feel really good, that's one of the best protections from narcissism, because then you're not dependent on this one thing to make you feel good. You've got like a portfolio, a diverse portfolio in your money in all these different banks. And so you can relax and take a breath and tell them to screw off if you need to. Suddenly there isn't you know, this controlling factor, because it's not tapping into,
Yeah.
I have to hold on to this at all costs because I'm never going to be happy again without this experience.
Yeah, and like, I had a client the other day, and she said something really interesting. She said, I really helped her to identify the narrative that she was telling herself, like the story, because she was going, I always attract narcissists, or like it was, I always attract bad guys. And I said, all right, we need to change your story. Because I said to her, you're giving that story power, and you attaching to that story is actually creating the experience, because you're basically saying to the universe, well, I always attract, so I'm always going to attract. And this is what I said to her. I said, you know, don't stress if you say that story, but just don't give it meaning or power or, you know, gravity.
Right.
Just don't give it that.
Right.
Just don't panic. You know, this is the myth about the law of attraction too, is that whatever thought we think, you know, if we think about an earthquake's going to happen, and it's not. It's like, it's just about
I learned that. I learned that as a
yeah,
kid, because as a kid, I thought all sorts of things,
yeah,
about all sorts of people. And if
yeah,
even one millionth of those things had come true, I mean, because as kids, we're super melodramatic. I
yeah,
remember,
yeah,
I think I told you the last time we chatted,
yeah,
I remember as a kid, I was, trimming around a big garden that my mom had. And it was a big job. And I was like 9, 10 or whatever. And like a quarter of the way through, it was hot out. I was like, I hope I get heat exhaustion. I mean, I had come up with this whole tale of,
yeah,
I don't want heat stroke because that's not good for you, but heat exhaustion, just enough to scare them so that they come and,
yeah,
take me to the hospital, and they realize this is too much for me.
yeah.
Can you imagine all the things that we used to wish on everybody else based
Oh
on
yeah,
our
yeah, yeah.
minds?
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
it's
I used to be scared.
crazy.
Yeah, and that's so true. Like I used to have a fear that whenever there was a knife in the room, that I would be paranoid. I was like, what if the knife like falls on someone? What if something happens? Like, what if,
Right.
someone grabs
Right.
that knife?
Right.
What if someone grabs it and goes start stabbing everybody? And it's like, this is
Right.
where I definitely question my sanity
Yeah.
sometimes.
And I shouldn't laugh. I'm so sorry.
No, I know it's no, I laugh at it now. It's hilarious because I used to have so much anxiety as a child because I
Yeah.
thought that meant that
Yeah.
I was evil. I thought that that meant that I was crazy, and I'm very glad for my mother because she has a psychology background. And she would go,
Uh-huh.
no, that's just your anxious thoughts. And so I did learn from a young age that although I had a lot of shame around the way that I thought my anxious thoughts, and really this is the thing, is that ultimately most people, we are normal. It's just that we have a tendency to, if we get anxious over the random thoughts that go on in our head, it's where the problems start, when we start to identify ourselves up in those thoughts. And it's just, this is what I always say to people: you can have a million crazy thoughts a day, but you're only really crazy if you start acting on those thoughts and
Right.
start, taking that knife.
Right. Right.
you
Right.
know so
I
it,
when I was 20, that's when
yeah.
I first met my in-laws. And
Mm-hmm.
they were in 12-step program, and so I got indoctrinated into,
Yeah.
12-step Al-Anon and Coda and stuff like that when
Oh
I was
wow.
20, before my brain even stopped growing. So I mean,
Whew.
talk about real positive impact from them.
That's good.
My father-in-law told me once, he said, for every situation,
Yeah.
there's at least 10, um, 10 solutions, 10
Mm.
ways to figure it out, 10 options. And so I thought, okay, so now every time I come up with something that's really uncomfortable, I say, well, option number one is I could drive off a bridge. Option
Yeah.
number
Yeah.
two is I could run away. And,
Yeah.
you know, I could
Yeah.
hop on a Harley. Not that I could ride one. I'm gonna hitchhike to California. I'm gonna
Yeah.
whatever. But once you start thinking of options that you
Yeah.
have, once you come up with 10, even if nine and a half of them are complete
Are
crap,
dramatic. Are
it
dramatic.
yes, exactly. I'm just gonna drive off this bridge right here. I think that'll solve all my problems.
Yeah.
So I mean, that's when we start thinking about solutions, that's the way we take our power back. I would hate to
Of
be somebody
course.
who was a narcissist. I can't imagine how horrible it would feel to be so insecure all the time
that you
Yeah.
need to behave in a way that drives everybody away, makes people angry at you all the time.
Yeah.
You know, what mindset that takes every ounce of power that they have and gives it to somebody else and says, you are in control of how I feel? I mean, I would never tolerate that.
Yeah.
I will never give people that power over how I feel. My struggle has been giving people enough power that I'll let them affect me. You know,
Yeah. Yeah.
that
Yeah.
I'll let them in. So I
Yeah.
can't even
Yeah.
imagine disempowering myself to such a degree. You know, I don't know how horrible that would feel. I'm sure you get used to it, but I
Yeah.
would never let myself give that much away to somebody.
Yeah, and it just goes to show with what you said is that, you know, we never know what stories and behaviors and impulses are driving people. And especially when we look at, you know, people out there that do the worst things in humanity of violence and domestic violence, physical violence. You know, it's really hard sometimes to understand the mindset of people that display these extreme behaviors. But I think what I've learned from, I guess, trying to understand, just to try and see what's going on, is that I think it comes down to wounding. It comes probably down to extreme trauma. You know, I think what makes people, you know, behave abusively, on some level, they must have extreme trauma. And I'm not excusing their behavior, but like, this is the
No,
thing
no,
is, yeah, it's maybe that's what compassion is trying to, even though we don't agree with their behavior, is going, all right, well, I'm not going to allow their behavior to stay in my life, but to go, you know what, you know, the best thing is to let them go, because maybe on some level it'll teach them that really you can't have a healthy relationship if you're going to behave this way. Like, it's just, you
right.
know,
And it
yeah,
accumulates, you know,
it
after they've been through
does.
a number of relationships that you start to be like, okay, there really is a common denominator. I
Yeah,
personally think that people
yeah,
hit a limit where they do get sick and tired of their life looking a certain way, you know,
true.
or something happens in their life that changes. I mean, like my dad, what happened for him was he got old. And when
Mm,
he got old and he needed to be dependent, you know, more dependent, and he, you know, and he felt more helpless and he couldn't hear as well and he couldn't think as clear. Suddenly, he became somebody who was good to be in a relationship with. And I've got a
mm,
client where the same sort of thing happened. After she had her first baby, her mom, who had been incredibly, you know, was nuts so like that, uh, cleaned up her behavior because she wanted to see the grandbaby. So, you know, when things change in people's life, they find the motivation to
yeah,
behave in a better way. And when we help teach them, even if we never see them again, but when we help teach them, this is how you have a good relationship. You might not be ready to do this right now, but when you are, you'll have the information. You know, that
yeah,
plants a seed. When I used to teach kindergarten, I really looked at, I thought, I'm impacting these children for the rest of their lives. I have no idea if they're going to be astronauts or if they're going to be, you know,
yeah,
accountants or if they're going to drive a truck. I have no idea where they're
yeah,
going in their life. However, I'm
yeah,
having an impact. And I was
yeah.
talking about before you came on, Eva Paracas, 1950s spiritual philosopher. And
Oh yeah,
one of the things that she wrote about was the person who's more spiritually evolved in a relationship has the responsibility to guide the relationship. And I was talking
yeah.
about how, yeah, why would you give the authority to the crazy person? You know, why would you give all the power to the one the
mm,
one who's nuts? You know, that's not in your best
yeah,
interest. But if
yeah.
you
It's like a
start
runaway
holding this
train.
higher
Yeah,
bar,
yeah,
when you start
mm,
holding this higher bar and encourage them to meet you at that bar, whether it's with, I'm encouraging by walking out of your life for good, you know,
yeah,
but whatever it may be,
yeah,
then it helps raise them up and guide the relationship in
yeah,
a healthier, more loving and graceful direction.
yeah.
So
And
we
I'll
have
give
to
you,
be
yeah,
responsible.
Yeah, exactly. I'll give you an example. Actually, I it was only a very brief relationship, very many years ago, but I found out through opening a drawer that this guy that I was dating had an addiction to prescription medication. Like he was on like
Ooh,
40 different. It was insane what he was taking.
wow.
And I went to a drug and alcohol counselor to just go, what do I do? And in the end, I decided the best thing, because I did approach him and he denied it and he got angry at me because he was an addict. And then I left. And you know what is interesting? Because about maybe 6 months later, he messaged me and he said, I want to thank you for leaving me because you made me realize that I couldn't have a relationship because I was in a relationship with the drugs. And he said, I got help and I'm off them. And I went, whoa, you know. But
Wow.
then he asked me back, and I was like, no.
Right, you're like, no. No, I'm
Because there was
I'm
other.
no longer interested in you.
Well, it's more that there was a lot of other things that were wrong too.
Right.
Namely, yeah, he
Right.
was a narcissist as well. So I just kind of
Right.
went no. But you know,
You're
it
like,
taught
good luck
me
with
that
Glad
yeah,
I helped.
yeah, glad I
think
helped.
people
But
do
yeah,
that
that's
years and years later.
yeah,
Because that's
yeah,
what happens.
yeah,
We plant a
mhm,
seed and then it grows and
yeah,
evolves. And then years
yeah,
later or decades later, when something switches or shifts,
yeah,
that
yeah,
seed is there. And so, if
yeah,
we really want a kinder, gentler, more loving world,
yeah,
then we have to step into that power. We have to
yeah,
recognize that we have
yeah,
the ability to
yeah,
help people evolve and grow, to help shape our own relationships. And when we are healthy, that is the best way to protect yourself from a narcissist,
yeah,
because that means you've got your support system. It means you're getting help. It means that you're doing things that make you feel good and stay balanced. It means that you're
mm,
constantly growing your mind. You're getting stimulated in other ways. And so now suddenly it's like you're surrounded with this, that's where the white light comes from. It
yeah,
doesn't just come from because it magically falls from the sky. It comes because we create it and nurture it inside of ourselves and become that, our own protection. The best
yeah,
way to protect yourself is to be as healthy and happy as possible, because
yeah.
then those things don't hijack you.
Yes, that's true. And in the case of, I'll just go back to the Hugh Hefner story.
Yes, no, I love this story. It's great. How much fun. I
Well,
want to know,
it's so
how she protected
interesting.
herself from you.
Well, what she did, gosh, I mean, she kind of didn't for a long time because she was basically on the verge of being homeless. Holly Madison is her name. She became Hugh
Okay.
Hefner's she became Hugh Hefner's main girlfriend.
Okay.
Out of the seven or whatever. But yeah, like so
Right.
she was homeless. She was basically going to be kicked out of her apartment. She was a struggling actress, and she asked to be a part of his world because they were, socializing through these Playboy Mansion parties. And
Sure.
he said, oh, yeah, you can, come in and we'll see how it goes. So already the precedent of that relationship was, you've got to please
Right.
me because I'm housing you
Right.
and I'm sheltering you. And it was
Right.
really a fight for her life. So really, because of, and this is actually how so many, if we're talking about domestic violence, this is how so many women do feel trapped in these situations because they don't have their own
Yes.
income. So what you're saying is very true, is
Yes.
that to be happy, healthy, and I'll add to that, financially independent is a really
Yes.
tough one, because especially when
Yes.
women have children and they can't necessarily work full time, this
Right.
is where this is where it becomes a challenge. But you're right that the ultimately we have to become happy and healthy and independent in our own mind and feeling capable. And so how she left Hugh in the end is the interesting thing was she got a job with the photography studio, I think, that were doing all the pictorials for the models. And she became an editor, a photo editor, and she learnt that, you know what, I'm better than just a girlfriend arm candy for Hugh. And that's how she empowered herself, by earning her own money
And that's when she ultimately left. And actually, she was involved with like a guy who was Chris Angel was a musician. Sorry, a magician. And
Right.
she realized, yeah, like that guy, that Chris Angel, although he ended up not being very nice either to her. But what she realized in that moment is that she could actually attract, people that wanted to be with her, because Hugh Hefner's whole thing was nobody will ever want you, because who like it was just crazy how the emotional abuse. But yeah, like it can happen in very, very interesting ways. Like people go, oh, the narcissist will go, but I'm providing for you, I'm working hard to provide for you financially, and this is how I show my love. And there's many cases where people say, this is how I show my love, and it's totally toxic. But until we start to go, you know what, no, that is toxic. That's where our power is to go, no, like I am capable and I am able to exist outside of. And it's important for women to say, I can make my own money and I'm comfortable with being on my own. That's something that is so important. I mean, I was taught that from a young age. My mucky with my mum, because she said, she always said to me, always have your own bank account. Because it's well, that's what she taught me as a survival thing. And yeah, I never ever got a joint bank account with. I mean, I've never been married, so I don't know, it's different sometimes when you get married, but yeah, I've never had a joint bank account even with the men that I have lived with. So that's just one thing. But yeah. So yeah, it's interesting.
Well,
Very
we
interesting.
start changing how we think by exposing ourselves to different thoughts. We're imprinted by the people and the ideas and the thoughts that we relate to, that we engage with. And so, a lot of people, they are run down, and they have been brainwashed to a certain way. And what people don't understand is that we really can brainwash ourselves the other way. We can brainwash ourselves into thinking more positively. There was this guy when I used to work for a chiropractor for a short period of time, and there was this gentleman who would come in, and on all of his stuff and in his car, he had all these sticky notes, and the sticky notes were all positive affirmations. And I thought he was nuts at the time. Even though I understood affirmations and I understood all that, I'm like, okay, this is a little bit excessive. But I realized that when we're constantly exposed to these positive thoughts, and they're everywhere, and they're all over the place, it starts to sink in, and it starts to change how we think. When I need to change my mindset, when I need to feel strong and grounded and balanced, I put on one song, and the song is Let Your Love Flow by the Bellamy Brothers. And I will listen to it sometimes for like an hour and a half until the words start to sink into my head, and I'm brainwashing myself to think in this positive way about what the lyrics, are saying. And so I'm attuning my thoughts to the song. And that's one great way that I help change my thinking, is by exposing myself to the thoughts that I wish I would think about myself, the thoughts that I wish were true. I did work out of a school of intuitive arts. They were a school that did classes on metaphysics and things like that. And I'd volunteer there. And they played this one CD over and over, and I thought it made me completely nuts. It was, this beautiful music with all these positive affirmations over it, constantly.
Yeah, nonstop.
Enough that I was like, enough already. But on the positive side, how good is it to get stuck in your head? The thoughts, I am beautiful, I am wonderful. I mean, that's not bad. It's not bad to have those brainwave patterns, burned into your psyche.
Yeah, that's true.
It's so we're battling so much negativity from the people around us that we really have to get that. I hate it. I still hate the song, but but the point is, it doesn't matter whether you like it or not.
No,
What matters
it's
is
still
whether
getting
you
in
think
there.
that way.
Yeah, and you know,
You know?
like I do think that I know that because like I agree. Like I do love positive affirmations, but I have a really warped sense of humor. So sometimes I'm
Yes.
listening to them and I go, oh yeah, whatever. Or I laugh like I'm like, you know, like my sarcastic mind goes in, but then it teaches me, oh, hang on, maybe that sarcasm is my problem. but that's the thing is, you know, and that's yeah. You know, but yeah.
I was reading this thing lately about how we tend to not keep an open mind.
Yeah.
You know, we have our opinions, and even and I'm very opinionated. I'm extraordinarily opinionated, and I pretend sometimes not to be. But I really, about the things that matter to me, I have an opinion, and that's not swaying. And so that's to my detriment, because when I can start looking at the world, like let's say through the eyes of a narcissist, you know, when I can look at the world and keep an open mind about why something might be working, like the annoying nagging song about how I am love and light, you know, but let me stay open to that and not shut it down so quick. Even if it's like, gee, wouldn't it be nice if I thought this way on a regular basis? Well, keep listening to this crappy song.
Yeah,
and eventually,
Yeah, but you know, it touches upon a really interesting thing, and I know a coping mechanism for me growing up was humor, you know, and I played into that when I became an actor, because it was all about, like, when I was in auditions, I would be so self-deprecating through humor. Like I remember for Halloween I dressed up, you know, the what's it called? The Wicked the musical, you know, Wicked the musical.
Oh yeah,
yeah, and the character of Alphaba. I had gone out for Halloween the night before an audition, and I had a green face, right? And unbeknownst to me, it didn't come off very easily, didn't wash off very easily. So I went to this audition for some, I don't know, it was like a horror movie or no. It was for a puppet. It was for a comedy series for using puppets, right? And I came to the audition with basically a green hue to my face. And I was like, I felt so insecure, but you know what I did is I just felt like a biggest failure, because it was a good opportunity and I'd ruined it by going out the night before and painting my face green. And I, instead of like sort of apologizing or anything, I just started going, oh, well, maybe you can use this in the character. Like, you know, I just absolutely went over the top with my humor, because I do have an ability to be witty and come back with things very quickly. And maybe that's from my high school teacher days. I was able to, if kids were, you know, sarcastic, I could come back with something really quickly. But I realized that was actually, in a lot of ways, a coping mechanism, and it was actually masking a deep wound of insecurity. And I'm not saying all humor is like that, but if you think about comedians like Robin Williams and all those ones that, you know, they really were the light of the world, but at the same time they hid a deep wound. And humor can be a coping mechanism as well. And it's not to say that we don't need humor in the world, but it's just to check in where that self-deprecating humor, where's it coming from? Because I really had to look at that and go, maybe I'm saying it because I don't feel good about myself, and I'm trying to actually deflect that wound by just distracting from that. And you know, so yeah, it can really. And the show business world, from what I've learned, you know, because I was in Los Angeles for a bit in Hollywood, and, you know, it's a huge coping mechanism, like humor and being the loudest in the room and being very comedic and funny. And you know, it can really be a mask for a lot of damaged souls in Hollywood in particular. I think one acting coach said to me, "Oh, we're all damaged." He's like, we're
Oh,
all
yeah.
damaged. That's
I
why we're in
know.
show business. Yeah.
That's
So,
why you know, got into this stuff. Yes, exactly. You know, all the misfits kind of gather together like that.
yeah.
And so, I mean, one of the things my psychologist told me recently is we were talking about depression. And I said, you know what? The more I learn about depression, the more I realize I was probably clinically depressed until I was
Yeah.
30.
Yeah.
You know, and the more I look at that, and she says, when you can identify something in yourself, it means that you're able to stop judging the other people around you. And, you know, when you're not judging that, then you get this peace, you get this acceptance. So the best, you know, one of the reasons that I don't go around and point too many fingers at people, one, because it's disempowering. I'm not going to, you know, blame them and give them the power over how I feel.
Yeah.
But the other one is that as soon as I say you're a blah, blah, blah,
Yeah.
and blame them and are angry at that, I automatically start thinking about how I'm that way. And now I have to judge myself. And I don't like judging myself. I don't like treating myself that way. And so I'm not going to go around and say you're a bad, you know, person or human being, because that means I have to judge me. And even if I'm not judging me now, in 10 years, when I'm smarter and more evolved and I see the world in a bigger way, I'm gonna be like, oh yeah, I was, you know, anxious, or I behaved in a narcissistic way, or I was a bully, or, you know, I was a liar, or I was a cheat, or all of those things. And that's one of the nice things I know from a twisted sense. When someone points out, true or not, when someone points out all of those faults in you, all of the things that you're doing wrong, it caused me to become more compassionate. And it caused me to become more aware of the people around me, because there were a lot of times that I was being completely self-absorbed, times when I wasn't paying attention or looking 2 or 3 steps down the road or thinking how it would affect somebody. I wasn't, you know, maybe thinking about how running late affects everybody else around me, you know? And so my self-absorption, it's truly there. And sometimes when we have got somebody who will point it out in the meanest, most emotionally effective way that you are not going to forget it, you start recognizing and being more gentle with other people too. Because you're like, they're running late. Yes, they're being self-absorbed. I know what that's like, because I would do that.
Yeah, I did that. I used to do that too. I used to run. Yeah, I used to run. Exactly. I used to. I still think we're the same person, because I had that same experience where I would run late all the time, and I had no idea how much I was affecting people, and I was always labeled Tara's always late. And then I had one person say to me, "You're going to lose so many friends if you're late." And it shocked me, because I realized that my intention was not to hurt anyone, but I was becoming so self-absorbed with like running, like, because I don't know, I just leave it to the last minute to get ready. And you know, I think it was a selfish thing, because, you know, like and to admit, to have that flaw staring at me in the face, it really hurt, because somebody was like, you know, you're going to lose friends. But I tell you what, it changed me, because I will forever be known as the person that's 5 minutes early now, 10 minutes early.
Yes.
Sitting there waiting for other people.
Yes.
You know?
I mean, one of the best protections I've had from, you know, people who are being really self-absorbed is to look through their eyes and be like, okay, they're being self-absorbed. And not only looking through their eyes, but looking at it from almost a wise place and say, if that were me, would I want to be considered a bully? Would I want to be considered the person that is that self-absorbed? Or would I want someone that would help me evolve as a person, so that I can get friends, and I can have relationships, and I can get along, and I can keep a job? You know, from that higher self. I when I was going through massage school, I went to a quirky massage school. It was a lot of fun. And one of the owners, she was a high priestess of Kabbalah. You know, he was high up in the Masons. They taught about, Asian sex practices. Yeah, I mean,
Oh, okay.
crazy.
Yeah, interesting.
Crazy.
Yeah.
It was so fun, which meant that it attracted some really weird people. And to the massage class. So one of them was practicing on me, and I felt very uncomfortable. And so I decided, you know what, I need to stop this. This is creeping me out. Just because I didn't like it, because it was creepy.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, like 10 minutes in, I'm like, okay, I gotta.
You don't want that. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm like, it's not you, it's me. I'm uncomfortable. Things are bringing up. All the while I'm thinking, you're creepy.
You're a creep.
So it is you. So I went to the owner of school, the high priestess of Kabbalah. Seriously, cool woman, hair down to her butt. I mean, it was awesome.
Sounds cool.
She, ran a little herb shop out of the school and made her own tinctures and had a farm and all this stuff.
That's pretty cool.
So I trusted her, and I went to her. I said, "How do you handle this situation?" And she had been through, being molested as a kid by her brother, and I mean, all sorts of stuff. She had been through the ringer and was wise, a very wise woman.
Yeah.
And so she says, when you don't let someone know how they're affecting you, when you let other people victimize you, you turn them into a victimizer. And you know what? A lot of people do not want to be victimizers. They don't want to be the bully. They don't want to be the toxic person. They don't want to be the person that everybody talks about, behind their back. They don't want that. Nobody wants that. And so when you allow somebody else to come from that selfish place and to beat you up and manipulate you and play with your head and wear down your self-esteem, when you let them do that, you are doing them a disservice. Because you're taking somebody who may, have issues and be self-absorbed, and you're making it worse because you're not letting them know that this is unacceptable. And if you want to have a relationship with me, that you need to change how you engage. You are not doing everything possible, everything within your capability to help them evolve, making something just as painful as maybe they've made for you, so that the message sticks. And we do it because we're like, well, I don't want to be just like that. I don't want to be the bully. I don't want to be the toxic person.
But we avoid conflict. We avoid conflict too. Like avoiding conflict.
When someone smacks you in the face, you remember it.
Yeah,
you don't forget that lesson.
Yeah.
And so it's the same sort of thing. Do you really want to teach somebody, another human being, if you're invested in them, family or friends or whatever, do you really want to abandon them to their bad behavior? Or do you want to make the point in a way that they will remember, to help them realize that you need to do something different if you want to have good relationships, long-term relationships, hold down your job, succeed in your career, get along with people, and be happy.
Yeah.
You need to do, if it matters to you, and it's okay if it doesn't. Everybody gets to choose for themselves. But if someone matters to you, I would want somebody in my life who would do what was necessary to help me live the rest of my life as happy as possible. And if that meant that they ripped me to shreds, and caused me to have to look at myself and make those changes, you know what? From that higher perspective, that's what I would want. I wouldn't want to spend my whole life suffering. I really wouldn't.
Well, that's true. And I think that it's like, I always say to my clients, if you have a deep love for yourself and you have your own back and you're your own best friend, then it does become a lot easier to identify and call out someone on their bad behavior. Because if we don't have a strong sense of self, what happens is that if we're calling someone out on their bad behavior and then they say, oh, you always do this, you always nag, you always do this, we then believe them if we don't have a strong sense of self.
Yes.
you know, and I've dealt with narcissists before where they've been verbally abusing me in public, and I just stood there and
Wow.
I said, oi, hey, because we say oi in Australia. I said, oi. I said, this is not okay. I put my hand up and he was shocked. I was like, this is not okay. I said, I refuse to engage with your childish behavior until you actually learn to speak to me with respect. And I tell you what, he never did that again.
And that's exactly what I mean. Because when you care about people, I mean, when you really care about them, when you've made the investment, when you've been married for 20 years, when they're your father, when they're your brother, when it's a job you have to keep, you know, and you don't want to destroy yourself in the process, then you start to reflect some of those same qualities, you know, that maybe you've always judged. Maybe you know, what keeps us sometimes from being balanced is our own judgmentalisms about that something is bad. And when we can see sometimes that bad behavior has good results, then we can take the good from it. We can use it judiciously and with intent, you know, without being hijacked by it. So what I like to tell women is get mad before you're really mad. You know, don't get mad when you're ready to walk out the door. Get mad when it's not something that really bothers you and you'd normally let it go. Get mad then, because then it's your rules. It's your game. It's your power back. And when you take the assertive stance like that, that is the best protection, because then it's you're coming into the situation, you're calling the shots, you're getting mad before you're out of control, and being able to say, all right, well, how will this land? What will this effect be? You know, it's like deciding you're going to have your bag packed, and that the next time that you don't like something, you're going to set the boundary and you're going to walk out the door and see if that makes an impact. Instead of waiting until you're out of control and you're like, I'm out of here, and then you've got no bag packed, you've got no backup plans, because you're coming from a place of anger and fear and turmoil.
But I think it's important to identify as women why in some situations we are passive and why we're submissive. And I think, and I know from my own experience, it's because we are attached to, we over attach, there's a codependency, and we fear rejection, and we fear we're going to lose them if we speak up. You know, we fear that, and that keeps us silenced so much. And that's the problem, is that why are we silent? Because we fear rejection. And we think if we behave in a certain way and not appear too demanding, you know, that then it bottles up. And then, like you said, we got our bags packed and we're out the door, and the person's scratching their head going, but you tolerated this before. And then, you know, quite that point, we've detached ourselves so much from the relationship that there's no way in ever. It's hard to come back. Exactly. You know, and that's where I think also we have to be really kind to ourselves when we're reflecting on past relationships that have broken down, because you know what, we did what we did at the time, and then we can learn from that and go, you know, there's ways, are there better ways, you know, or like, for example, for me, I've gotten out of a relationship from last year, and I've decided to book myself in for therapy, because I'm dealing with stuff now that everything's been brought up, that I need to not date. I don't need to date right now or be with anyone else. I need to work on me. And I'm saying to myself, I'm committing to myself to be single while I do that, because I don't need another person around me infusing all their stuff on me when I'm trying to sort out my own stuff. You know? So knowing when to be single is important too.
Well, because the ping-pong ball just goes back and forth, you know. Their emotional craziness, your emotional craziness, and nobody's taking the lead. Instead, you're just allowing chaos to rule the day.
And it
But
would be, I think, to identify if we're getting into the relationship or dating for the sake of dating for a distraction. Because I think that, you know, if you've been single for a certain period of time, it's like you find that some people like some other people in your life will say, oh, well, maybe you should start dating it again. And then I say to myself, but why is there a time limit on how long I should be single? I've been single for years before I've been in another relationship. And I think that's okay, because if it's been a big relationship, sometimes you need a lot of time to heal from it. And it's not that, you know, we're bitter or jaded. Like, and to be single, I think, is not to be jaded either. Or because some people automatically assume you're single because you hate being in, you know, like you're hating men because you've been through something traumatic.
Right.
And I say to them, no, I love men. I love divinely conscious men that are willing. And I'm not going to settle for less than that now. You know,
Right.
so,
Right, because
you know
it exists. You know it's possible for you. And
I
so
know
because
men that are, like, you know, I know a lot of men that are. I mean, obviously we're not together, but there are beautiful men in my world that I know are serving the planet and consciousness, and it's wonderful to see. But, you know, that's another thing, is that seeing that and going, okay, that's great, but I need to be in that place too. And I'm not saying they're perfect, but, and I don't know if we can ever really be a perfect embodiment of 100% the divine feminine,
but
the
you can
sacred
sure have a lot of
feminine.
fun.
We can sure have a lot of fun, and at least like know that we've got the goddess self, and then we've got the human self. And quite often in relationships, the goddess self, people fall in love with that. And then when the human self starts surfacing, ooh, what's going on here? And that's when there's problems in relationships.
Well, especially when we're, you know, when we're healer types. My psychologist, and I love her, she's always, you know, quick to remind me that people come to me because they want that one-sided relationship. They want to not have to be responsible for my happiness. And so we have to have our friends, we have to almost hold to a higher standard, because they're not our clients. We're not trying to heal them.
Of course.
We just want them, we want them to be a friend. We want them to be, you know, a companion in some way. And when we take that role of, I'm going to heal everybody, I'm going to be so tolerant and so patient and so understanding, you know, it does not serve anybody, because then we end up so dry, because our well gets dry. And so there's a difference between people that are paying you to help them heal and people in the rest of your life.
Exactly. And this is the challenge, because you don't want friends who say they're friends and then just constantly want free readings off you, which is, I know I've had experiences like that. And I can, you know, and pretty much the people that have been in my life the longest are the ones that I trust, because they knew me before I was a psychic. I mean, I kind of guess I always was psychic, but before I was professional, you know, professionally doing it. But you can tell, and you can really, as you get stronger in yourself, you can tell when there's people who are treating you like, you know, that thing you said, hold the space for me constantly, but I'm not going to hold the space for you. Just hold the space for me, you know? And it's...
Right.
And you'll know, because if you ask to hold the space for you and they don't, because they're too busy or whatever, then that's how you'll know that it's one-sided.
Right.
So,
right.
You know,
well, and a lot of times when narcissists get their needs met and they feel good and you're, you know, all the energy's coming through you, then they're happy and they treat you well, you know. But then as soon as you start saying, well, these are some of the needs that I have, that's when the ugliness can come out. And that's when the attacks and the manipulation is, you know, because they think that they're not going to get what they need, because now
or they say you're a narcissist. And they say you're a narcissist. They go, like, they'll turn it around and, you know,
you're so selfish. You only think about yourself. You don't think about anybody else.
I'm the one with the problems. Right. They're very good at it.
So it's easy for us who are more empathic and in healer
Yeah.
sort of positions, or energy workers, or compassionate, to, for me it was, for a while it was a protection and an ego thing, because if I was connected to somebody who had bigger problems than me, then that meant I was okay.
Yeah.
If you were really screwed
Yes.
up and you were crazy,
Mm-hmm.
then I was fine. And so I would
Yeah.
keep,
Mm.
depending upon my level of, imbalance, I would have some pretty crazy people in
Yeah.
my universe,
Yeah.
because that was the only way that I felt better about myself. And
Yeah.
that was my identity, you know?
Yes. Hugely. Hugely. We can attach to, and this is where the wounded healer archetype, and I've certainly been that,
Right.
where
Sure.
I get lost in the role of helping, and really in the end, when you transcend that, where you go, because I know for me, like, because I speak to a lot of people in 1 week
Hmm.
with the job that I do, a lot of people, and it's like I have to switch off, like, and
Hmm.
that's not cruel for me to say that, is that as soon as the phone gets put down, or I finish, in person with a client, I have to switch off, because I look at it like I'm visiting their world and I'm being their mirror, and then
Hmm.
once it finishes, I go back to being me, they go back to being them, and the connection is closed until they
Hmm.
reach out again or call again.
Right.
Because if I don't do that, because I used to spend so long over attaching, thinking about, ruminating over what I said, and going, oh my God, I hope that I didn't say something bad then. And I realized that was all my own attachment to
Hmm.
needing to, it was an ego thing, because it was needing to be perfect. It was needing
Hmm.
it, like, if I couldn't, like, in my mind, I couldn't make a mistake, because if I made a mistake, then my self-worth was shot through, and I was a terrible person, and if I didn't 100% help that person. But what I came to learn is that we have three roles with people when we're in the healer role. And actually, even really in real life, is like, we can challenge a person to change. What we say can resonate with them, or what we say they can reject. And even in the face of them rejecting what we say, that's still helping them, because then they validate their own position. And once I
Yeah.
figured that out in my brain, I lost all the need for perfection, because I realized that
Right.
I lost the need to feel like I had to say something perfect all the time. I mean, I still cared
Hmm.
what I said. I still had moral
Hmm.
integrity about what I said, and pure
Hmm.
intention. But and you come from that place, but you can't control how people receive what you say. And like,
Right.
that was
Right. And it's
huge for me.
it's so
Yeah.
much more, the way I get out of that perfection place is, I tell myself this is way more complex than the couple of tablespoons of gray conscious matter
Yeah.
at the front of my brain will ever be
Yeah.
able to figure out. I mean, it's like
Exactly.
2 to 3 tablespoons of our brain that we identify
Yeah.
as quote unquote us, and we
Yeah.
completely ignore that we are also, you know, the other 99% of us has a say too. And so it's much more complex than I'll ever figure out. So I'm not going to worry about it, and I'm going to assume that it's going to be fine. And if it's not fine, then I'm going to assume that I'll figure out how to handle it.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that gives me a nice pass for a lot of things, because I'm like,
Yeah.
it's not that it's out of my control, or it's not that it's out
Yeah.
of my influence. It's definitely
Yeah.
within my influence, but it's
Yeah.
way bigger than I will ever be able to figure out, ever.
Yeah.
So I'm
Exactly.
not
We're
going to
we're a
worry
part
about
of
it.
something. Exactly. We're a part of something. And that's what I've come to learn, is that the divine intelligence that is way more intelligent than our singular consciousness. Yes, we're connected to the whole collective consciousness, but we're choosing to be a singular being, and we have blinkers on as to the whole master plan of what divine intelligence is. And so that's where I kind of go, you know what? they can channel stuff through me, but ultimately I am not responsible for every single person that I speak to's pain. I'm not responsible for that. I'm responsible in the moment to be of integrity and to speak kindly, because there's no point in being horrible to people, and that doesn't help anyone. But I think sometimes we can, speak firmly, and we can speak honestly too. And that's what helps people too, is to, we don't have to sugarcoat everything, but we don't, at the same time, we can't be cruel, but like, there's a difference. But, I know that a lot of people, that's why they speak to me, is because I'm going to tell them the truth. I'm not going to just go, oh, everything's fine all the time, when it's not. Like it's
Right.
holding, it's that, so it's, we have really spoken about some cool things today. I'm loving it.
I know.
Playboy
Hey,
Mansion. It is.
Do you know what time it is?
Well, it may not help you because my time's completely different to yours, but it is currently 9:52 a.m. for me on Friday morning. So that means for you, it would, I think we started speaking about 50 minutes ago, if that helps.
Yeah. Well, so it was supposed to go like 7:30 to 9.
Yes. So I'm trying to think of the time difference because you got daylight savings. I don't know.
I know it won't be half hours, which means that it's probably almost 9. It's like 8 minutes to 9 here. Yeah, I would assume.
Oh yeah, because it's an hour. Yeah, it's an hour minus 13 hours. Yeah, 13. Yeah, because I'm 13 hours ahead of you. Oh, this is confusing.
Yeah. It's
anyway,
okay.
Thanks for having me.
I'm just thrilled you were able to come on.
Yeah, and how lucky was that? I didn't get. Oh, that's okay. Well, how lucky that I didn't get a call that entire, because normally the phone's like ringing off the, and I was like, oh, this is unusual, but obviously we were meant to speak, so
clearly meant to speak about this. So I mean,
cool.
so to wrap up, my best way of protecting myself from narcissistic people in my life is to keep myself as surrounded by people with healthy attitudes, to keep putting in my brain healthy ideas, to keep doing things like CBD oil and hydration and fiber and all those things that keep me feeling good. When I take responsibility for how I feel, that is the best way to protect yourself from anything.
100%.
Because then no, you don't give away your power to somebody else and end up helpless and vulnerable and weak, and because you're saying, hey, you get to behave the way that you're going to behave, and this is what I'm going to do. Exactly. You get to live your life, and I'm going to live my life, and if you want to spend time with me, then you will, and if you don't, then you won't. You'll either follow by the rules that I have around me, or or you'll go away.
Exactly.
Simple as that. And it sounds simple, but I mean, when you come into a healthy space, it does get that simple.
It does. And your tolerance level, I know that now that I'm in my mid-30s, like I think about in my early 20s who I used to what I used to tolerate was insane. Right. No wonder I felt crazy in myself, because I had people around me that were just asking so much, or just on such that adrenaline high. But in that moment I was addicted to the adrenaline, like you say about adrenaline. We get addicted to this, to drama. We do get addicted to drama until we realize that that's not really the best way to live, is that drama is not necessarily, I mean, we can have fun, exciting times with, and I'd probably say one of my methods for staying healthy is surrounding myself with people that I trust, and that people that have been with me in the long haul, and the people that know me just for me, and not like have only known me as Tara the psychic, people that have known me as Tara from a small country town, that they've seen me through all my journey, and that's the people that I honor and that I believe. When they're telling me a truth, I believe them, because I've known them to be the ones that I can rely on, not the people that kind of are flitting in and out of my life.
Yeah. And of course, me.
Yes, of course. I think one day I do know that I want to get to America again at one stage, because I
Well,
want
and
to
I
go
want
to
to get to
yeah.
Australia. Oh my God.
Yeah, you
I
totally
would love
should.
that.
Well, I live
I
in
would love
Western
that.
Australia. I live on the up, like, so the East Coast is kind of the busier part of
Hmm.
Australia, but we still got a really cool community over in the West. Like we're
Are you
cool.
by
Yeah,
Perth?
yeah. Yeah, in Perth. I live in Perth.
Okay,
Yeah,
cool.
Perth, Western
Yeah,
Australia.
no, I was looking you up on a map.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Like well,
Best.
my husband
Yeah.
was looking you up on a map Monday night.
Oh,
He's like,
cool.
where
Where's
time zone?
Perth?
Where is she? And she's in
Yeah.
Australia. It's like, oh, she's on the west side. That's
I'm
near
on the west
Perth.
side. Yeah, yeah, exactly. Well, we have. Well, put it this way: I live really close to the beach, so it's
Wait.
I'm about 5 minutes drive, and
Mhm.
it's the beaches are so beautiful in Western Australia. Like we really
Nice.
do. So yeah, you're
Nice.
always welcome to come, and
Thank you.
there's always
Thank you.
a room in my house, and we can go to the beach.
Well, and that's the best way to protect yourself is you
Yeah.
go to a beach, you
Yeah, I
hang
need
out
the
in the
beach.
ocean, you walk in the woods.
Yeah.
You know, we think these things are so simple, but that's what keeps us mentally and emotionally stable.
Yeah.
And you know, when you do that, then nothing can really knock you off your game because
Yeah.
you've got so much support and so much confidence in yourself that this whole narcissism thing just hey, my friend Renee just came on. Hi,
Oh yeah.
Renee. Say hi. Renee
Hi, Renee.
is a psychic as well.
Oh, that's so cool. Hello.
Yeah, Renee does phone psychic. So
Beautiful.
you know,
Same as
so
me.
she'll
Yeah,
get
that's great.
right. So she's a ton of fun. I
That's
love her
so
pieces.
cool. I
Yeah,
love
so I'm
meeting
like,
I love meeting other psychics. I love meeting other psychics. It's just so cool. You know, I'm sure like same for you. You love meeting people in your field because it's
no,
like
not
it's
really.
yeah. Oh, you don't. Okay.
Oh,
Oh, you don't. Oh, you
I
don't
had
meet.
to,
Yeah.
I had to get over. I still have some judgmentalisms to get over because I'm still
Oh,
a
fair
little
enough.
bit of an elitist. You know,
Oh,
I'm
that's all
like,
right.
oh well, the work that I do, you know, isn't what those people do.
Yeah,
So I
yeah.
still have a little bit of that going on. It's
Yeah,
hilarious.
I don't know. Maybe because well, I mean, I feel like I know a lot of psychics probably just because the way that my whole career came about is, you know, I was working in a crystal store, so I did meet a lot of psychics and stuff. So I feel blessed to know a lot, but oh, it's like anything, isn't there? There's always like good and bad people out there. Like, you know, I've certainly met, you know, amazing psychics, and then I've met some that, yeah, I don't tend to spend a lot of time with. It was,
Right.
you know, because you know,
You
there's
get mixed
but in
bag.
yeah, well, but there's that's the thing in any industry you're going to get that, aren't you?
Right.
You're going to get people that
Right.
you go, ooh, but that's okay.
both sides of the spectrum. So, okay,
Exactly.
cool. So if you need some help with your narcissist from a psychic direction, contact Tara. If you need some help from a body-mind direction, contact me.
Yes.
You know, because we
Yes,
help
exactly.
coach and work women through these issues based on our own, you know, gifts and specialties. And mine's all about Asian medicine and the body mind and how to take care of your body so that you're strong that way. And Tara uses her psychic gifts to help give you that guidance as to what the best direction is and how to handle the narcissist in your life so it doesn't make you crazy. So
yeah, I deal
else?
with like energy. Yeah, well, I deal with energy really as well. Like it's that, you know, yes, I use cards and I use my own abilities, but it's very much about relational dynamics for me. It's about looking at the dynamics. So there is, you know, there is a life coach aspect in there to what I do as well, because I make sure that there's a lot of practical. I'm the practical psychic, so if you want practical magic, come to me.
I love that practical magic. Cool.
Yeah, it needs to be. Yeah.
Well, I'm thrilled that this worked out.
Yeah, that was cool.
I wasn't trying to, you know, talk for an hour and a half about narcissism, which is fine. You know, I can do that, but
yeah,
it's so much nicer to have somebody to chat with. So
yeah,
I'm
it was
thrilled
great.
that
I
the
really enjoyed it.
universe,
Yeah,
you know, brought you on.
yeah,
Cool.
it was
Thanks,
awesome.
Tara.
That's okay. Thank
And
you, Rita.
Yep, I'll talk to you later.
Bye bye. Oops.
Bye.
Bye.